வேதத்து மறை நீ வேதத்து மறை நீ பூதத்து முதலு நீ வேதத்து மறை நீ பூதத்து முதலு நீ வெண்சுடர் சுடர் ஒளியும் நீ திங்களுள் அழியும் நீ திங்களுள் அழியும் நீ வெண் சுடர் ஒளியும் நீ திங்களுள் அழியும் நீ வெண் சுடர் ஒளியும் திங்களுள் அழியும் நீ அனைத்தும் நீ அனைத்தும் நீ அனைத்தின் உட்பொருளும் நீ அனைத்தும் நீ அனைத்தின் உட்பொருளும் நீ ஆதலின் 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 உரையும் ஆதலின் உரையும் ஆதலின் உரையும் உரையும் உரைவதும் ஆதலின் உரையும் உரைவதும் ஆதலின் உரையும் உரைவதும் உரைவதும் இதையே
That was Paripadal, one of the oldest works in Tamil literature, and I'll talk about this later. Good evening to all of you, rather vanakkam, wherever you are. Some people, for some it is good morning, for some it is good afternoon, and yes, good evening. I know people are watching from across the world. I'll tell you some of the ground rules before I start. I will not be seeing your comments. You can post your comments, and I will see it once the session ends after 1 hour. Swati and Shantanu will come live and they will consolidate the questions and ask me. So you're free to ask me anything during the session. You can do that, and I will definitely answer whatever possible. So music in Tamil literature, very interesting topic indeed. When Swati asked me to do something, I said the first thing which struck me was this. I said I'll do this because music is very close to my heart, and yes, literature, especially Tamil literature, is very close to me. So I think people who are non-Tamil also have joined. So just a briefing about what this means. Tamil literature is Tamil language is one of the oldest in the world, and there is historical proof for that. There was something called Sangam period. There was first Sangam period, second Sangam period, and third Sangam period. And what we have now are the works during which were composed during the third Sangam period. And now this Tamil is the only language where you have prose, drama, and music all integrated together as part of the language grammar. As far as I know, there is no other language which combines all the three and defines the grammar as well. Tamil grammar was first written by sage called Agathiyar, and later on there was his disciple called Tolgapiyar who wrote the grammar. And there is mention about music, there is mention about drama, there is mention about prose. Each and everything is defined in that Tolgapiyam, which was composed around 500 BC. And now you have this, say, this period. And let me also clarify that I'm not going to talk about theory per se. There'll be some theory because it's music, but I'm just going to give an outline. And later on, I'm going to show you how Tamil people, enjoyed music. Music was part of their life, and part of their life in literal sense. So I was talking about the Sangam period. I was also mentioning about this Paripadal, which Viraj sang just now. Paripadal was even composed before Tulgapya. So Tulgapya in his text mentions about Paripadal. And Paripadal, the speciality of Paripadal is that you have somebody who wrote the poem, and there was somebody who set it to music, and that music was set to a melody. Mark this word, melody. Nowadays we call something as raga. This was existing in Tamil land, and in fact, Tamil music was the precursor to all this, and I can safely say that because I have literature to back this up. Now, this this that melody was called Pan. And what you heard just now, as per the text, is mentioned as Palai Pan, which is the equivalent of one raga in the present uh, music. I'm not going to say what raga it is now. I'll take it later on. And this will be divided into four different segments. First, I'm going to talk about music as seen in Sangam literature, and then music as seen in the next period. I'm not going to say what period was that because there is always something called surprise element, and it's good for the presenter as well as for you all. So now, after that, one more period, and finally one period. So that is how it is. And I'll be focusing mainly on Sangam literature because what I find is that the Sangam literature, despite being one of the oldest, people focus mainly on the poetic aspect. I've not seen many say commentaries on the musical aspect, though it has a lot of music, not just hidden, open. We will see that, and I'm going to show. Say there are 18 different works during this Sangam period. Ettu Togai and Pattu Pattu. I'm not going to trouble you with the names. Just understand that there were 18 different works, and Paripadal was one of them. I'm going to take samples from each, not each one of them, maybe some four or five, and I'm going to read out the verse, and then I'm going to explain. And here, you have seen poems, you have seen prose works where they say this hero sang, heroine sang, or whatever. But here is the case where the melody also is mentioned, say in the poem itself, which means that it was kind of matter of fact for these people. Music was matter of fact. Music was part of their life, as he was saying. And there were four different categories of professional artists. I'm giving you this background so that it will be easier for you to appreciate before I get on with the verses. Now, there are four different professional artists. One was Puttar. Puttar, as the name suggests, were dancers, but they were also adept in music. Then there were Paners. Paners were essentially musicians who would play an instrument called yard. I'll come to that again. It's a special instrument unique to this Tamil land. And then they would play flute also. They're well versed in vocal music as well. Then there were Porunar. Porunar were people who sang during war, martial musicians, as we say. So, which means that for Tamil people, music was for everything, for love, for sadness, then for war, and for separation, for fighting. So, music was all around for each and every aspect of life. And then finally, there were viraliers. Viralier were essentially dancers and musicians, and they were women. And then slightly to touch upon the sociological aspect, these people, especially Parner, they were, though there is no mention about low caste, the so-called low caste, now as we call now in the present day parlance, Dalits. But caste system existed during that period. There is enough proof for that, and there is mention about people who belong to the upper caste, but it doesn't say upper caste or lower caste. Caste system as it is existed, and these people, these musicians, were respected. It was something like Devadasis. Devadasis were respected a lot. So Banargal were respected, and they mingled with everybody. There was no discrimination. In spite of the caste system existing, there was no discrimination. There was nothing like you're great and you're small. I'm great and you're small, except for the king. King was the ruler, and king was the ruler was very capable person in terms of fine arts. He could appreciate finer elements in life, poems, music, dance, and everything. And when these people, these Parners or Puttargal and Viralier and Puranar went to him and sang verses, king, if he was happy with that, would reward them. And that is how they made living. So this is the background. And melody, now I'll come to that. And Tamil land was divided into 4 categories as far as Tolkappiyam text goes. It was Kurinji, Marudam, Neidal, and Mullai. Now, Kurinji, each region had its own mood, it had its own god, it had its own music. That is what is important. So there was Kurinji art or Kurinji Pand, there was Mullai art, and then Marudam, and then Neidal. Neidal, I'll come to that. And there was later on, after Tolkappiyam, there was something called Palai. Palai is dry lands. Tamil Nadu didn't have dry land those time, but it was added later on, not during Tolkappiyam's time. So there were, after that it became 5. So poems were composed based on this and the mood. Then, as far as music theory is concerned, the basic aspect of music is concerned, they were intelligent enough to recognize the 22 different shrutis, what is called as shrutis now, and the 7 notes and variant of each note except for sa and pa, just like how it is existing now in the present day music. These notes were known by Tamil name, and let me tell you what those names were. Kural, this sa. Tuttam, re. Kaikilai, Gandharam, ga. Then Ulai, ma. Idi, pa. Vilari, da. And Taram is ni. So it was not known by Sarigama Padani. It was Kural, Tuttam, Kaikilai, Ulai, Ili, Vilari, Taram. I'll come to this later in the next segment. Now, what we are, this is as far as the basic introduction is concerned, in the Tamil land, there is a lot. In fact, given a chance, I would take up each and every work and analyze only the musical aspect for 1 hour, so 18 hours, and then only the poetic aspect for another 18 hours. It's a treasure. It's a treasure, really. And you will know why I'm saying this. And I will now start with one verse where the music instrument is described. I will stop mentioning about the yard. Yard is something like harp, and it existed at least until 15th century. I have proof for that I will cover when I come to that segment. And yard was like veena, but without frets, and there were different strings. There was something called, the biggest yard was Peri yard, which had 21 strings. Then you had Makara yard, then you had Siri yard, which had 7 strings, and then there was Sagote yard, which had 7 strings. So the 4 basic yard. And music belonging to particular region, say for example, Mullai, it was Mullai yard, Marudam, Marudam yard, Kurinji, Kurinji yard, Palai, Palai yard. It was called as yard. So yard was the basic thing. That is from the instrument. It is also said, though I don't have enough proof for that, I read somewhere, it's also said that each yard represented one region. So yard for melody only for that region. So this is the basic understanding. And there was in this work, there in all these works, there is mention about instruments, how they are made, and how they sound, and there are a lot of other things. Let me first start with one of the verses, which is from Puranar Aatrupadai. Puranar, as I said, martial musicians, and Aatrupadai was something that there is Puranar Aatrupadai, there is Koothar Aatrupadai, which is also called Malai Padukadam. Then there is Perumban Aatrupadai, then Siruban Aatrupadai, then Tirumuruga Aatrupadai. Aatrupadai essentially is a composition where the Bana or the Koothar or this Puranar go to the king, sing verses, get the gifts, and on the way, these people meet their friends and they sing about this king. And that is Aatrupadai in simple terms. Tirumuruga Aatrupadai was different, that is religious thing that is beyond the scope of this session, so let us leave that alone. So this is from Puranar Aatrupadai. Now here is the description of a yard. So how does it go? There are actually 248 lines in this poem, but I've just picked up 5. And this poem talks about many things, but music, it revolves around music. Just revolves around music. Now let me tell you, I'll read the verse first and then I'll give you the explanation. குழப்பு வழி அன்ன கவடுபடு பத்தல் விளக்கு அடல் உருவின் விசி உரு பச்சை எய்யா இளஞ்சூல் செய்யோள் அவ்வயிற்று ஐது மயிர் ஒழுகிய தோற்றம் போல பொல்லம் கொத்திய பொதியுறு போர்வை. These are the 5 lines. So a typical yard had பத்தல், தோல், போர்வை, ஆணிவேர், தண்டு, வார்க்கட்டு, நரம்பு தொடர்ச்சி. And the poet says that the shape of the yard is like the hoof marks left by the deer. You know the deer, you have that feet. So the hoof marks, that is deer goes jumps in that forest, and the hoof marks. So yard reminds him of the hoof marks of the deer. And sides of pattal. Pattal is the pot, just like what you see on Veena. It is a pot in yard. And one side, that is 2 sides, are lower, and the middle part is higher. And the skin is fire red in color. And the poet compares the suit covers to that of a hair of a young lady. You know what? You know the qualification of the lady. A pregnant woman in a first trimester. Ilanjul. That is the first time we can interpret as, because that is when the pregnancy starts. The stomach, if you see, it will be bulged slightly. Okay, so that is how he's describing this yard. And her hair goes up to the stomach, and her stomach is exposed, and it is shining. This yard is shining like that. And the nails on the holes of the instrument remind him of the eyes of the crab. People who live in coastal regions are familiar with crab. You know how eyes pop up from crabs. And the hole from which the sound emanates is without an inner tongue. You have this inner tongue, so there is no inner tongue. So that reminds him of the 8th crescent moon, 8th, just exactly half. And who plays it? A dark-hued woman whose fingers are like a kaikuttal arisi. Kaikuttal arisi, for people who can't understand Tamil, you can simply take it as organic rice. Okay, it's as pure as that, and it looks. And this also shows one thing, that Tamil people never care. We were actually very proud about our skin color. There was no Fair and Lovely those days, thankfully. And even if that was there, it would have been banned in Tamil Nadu. So we were proud of the skin color. A dark-hued woman, and it looks as if the goddess of yard is dressed like a newly wed bride. I'm sure a lot of ladies are here. When you go for your wedding, the first say reception, you go to a beauty parlor and dress yourself up. So the goddess of yard is something like, she's so happy. You know why? This is the clincher. It says that the sound, that palai yard, that palai pun, which is emanating from that yard, will make even bandits, even thieves, drop their loot and be spellbound and mesmerized. That is, even a stone heart will melt. That is the beauty of the music from this yard. And this poem also talks about different techniques of playing yard. Yard was not played plainly, which goes to show that the classical music those days were pure classical music. Was pure classical music in terms of other things like how we have this gamakam and other things now in Carnatic classical music. It says like there is something called Bartal, which is played only with index finger. Vadittal, playing with two fingers. Undi, that is alternately touching the fingers softly and with force, and then Urada, that is touching the alternate strings. So, and there is more also, but just this is just a sample. In Tamil, we say "Oru pana sothukku oru soru padam." That is, this proves enough that how they enjoy music instruments and music per se. And if this was a description about yard without specifying what yard it was, there is a description of Periyar in that Malay Kadam, which is also called Putharatru Padai. And here I'll just read out again so that you enjoy that. Though you cannot understand this Tamil, most of you, even if your mother tongue is Tamil, it's very difficult to understand because the Tamil given in this work is totally different, and we no longer speak that kind of Tamil, but it's very pure. தொடித்திருவு அன்ன தொண்டுபடு திவவின் கடிப்பகை அனைத்தும் கேள்வி போகா குரல் ஓர்த்து தொடுத்த சுகிர் புரி நரம்பின் அரலை தீர உரி வரகின் குரல் வார்ந்தன்ன நுண்துளை இரி Look at the musical sound. Even this is musical to me. Even if you don't understand the meaning, tira uri iri look how musical it sounds. Now what he says is that the strings were tied at one point which looked like the number 9. So what is the number 9? In Tamil, apart from the alphabets, the Uyiriluthu, Meyyiluthu, Uirmai Eluthu, we also have numbers mentioned as alphabets. And number 9 is depicted as the letter Ksha. Ksha, they say, is from some other language, but Ksha existed in Tamil land. That is the Ksha. People who can read and write Tamil know how the Ksha appears. It appears like the combination of strings. So that is what he's saying. That is, the strings are tied like the number 9, and then the strings are tuned to perfection. You can just stop with that, just perfection. But he's saying, not even a micro mistake will it allow. Will it allow this yard? Not even a mistake as micro or as small as a mustard. Kadippagai anaitum kelvi poga. And it also talks about the nails arranged like the row of millets, the body of the tusk of an elephant. And here too, this of course a different work, but here too, the hair of the woman and the stomach are used as simile. So this is about yard, 2 verses about yard, and you know now how musical these people were, and music was in one of the many it's a very common usage in Tamil that rattathil irukku. So it was there in their blood, and that is carried by all Tamil people. I can say that with pride. I'm not sounding chauvinist, but this is a fact. I'm just reading out what is given. I'm only taking an objective view. There's nothing subjective about it. Now this Malaipadu Kadam, the one which I read now, begins with the mention of percussion instruments. There were more than 35, 40 percussion instruments those days. And one of the percussion instruments was parai. And you can make the sociological connection. I'll stop with that. Parai was a percussion instrument, and it was say played by a particular clan of people, and they were respected. So here it says, "Win adir imirisai kaduppa pan amaithu tinbar visitta muzhavodu aguli." It mentions about, there are more lines, so I will just list out the percussion instruments mentioned here. He says, like the thunder, for these people, any natural sound reminds them of music. I've noticed it. The sound of the elephant is musical to them. Sound of the bee, which I'll come to that very soon. So thunder sounds like music. So it says that it makes fun. That is a raga in present day parlance, which is hit on its eyes, on the eyes of what? Mattalam. You have heard of the name Mattalam. And then there is Siruparai, Kanjatalam, Aguli. Then there is a melodic instrument called Tumbu. About Pombu, just yesterday I read in the Hindu in Friday review where I came to know that it was used in, it's still being used in Kerala, and I'm sure it is the same Pombu. Pombu is a long, very lengthy instrument, very difficult to play. And there is also something called Karadigai, which makes the sound of the animals. And Padalai. What was Padalai? Padalai was used to keep the count of Tala. If you people have noticed in weddings or any Nadaswaram concerts, there is one small person who puts the jalra, who keeps the talam count for the tawil vidwan. So there, this padalai was used to keep count on the talam. So they were rhythmically also very sound, literally and figuratively. Now we saw just samples of instruments, then percussion instruments, how they were described. Let us see how a description about a land gives music to that poet. This is from a work called Madurai Kanji, where I will read out the verse first. Verse first. Tivavu mei niruthu செம்பழி பண்ணி குரல் புனர் நல் யாழ் முழவோடு ஒன்றி. Sempadi is a pun. What that pun is, I'm going to cover in the next segment. I promise I will definitely cover. I'm not covering all this for a reason. Sempadi panni, kural punar nalyal mudavodu ondri. What happens is, young pregnant women. So apart from this natural sounds, these people also were enamored of probably pregnant women in the first trimester, because I find a lot of references to them. And they go to pray to the goddess with the yard tightly held, and the yard plays Sempadi Pan. As I said, it's not uncommon to find literature in other languages where it says the hero sang, the heroine sang, as I mentioned earlier. But here he specifically says Sempadi Pan, and with a string sounding sa, kural punar, kural. If you remember that kural I mentioned in the beginning, sa, with the backing of Parai and Muravu. So these young women go and pray. And this is how it is described. Now, how is dawn described? It is, the sun is rising just about say 5:30 or so. I don't know how many are early risers here, but if you're not, you miss a lot. So here, these people, that they get up early. Tamil people always got up early. And you know what it says, this Madurai Kanji verse. Odal andanar vedam pada, சீரினிது கொண்டு நரம்பு இனிது இயக்கி யாழோர் மருதம் பண்ண. Marudam is another pun. That is a raga. If you want to ask me what it is now, I think Sempadi I'm not saying, but Marudam is the present day Kalyani. So now look at the first line. Odal andanar vedam pada. Brahmins were reciting Vedas, which goes to show that there were these people who were reciting Vedas, yes, during that time. And side by side, these Panas were also existing without any fight, without any discrimination. This is what it shows, apart from the musical aspect. So they're playing that Marudam Pan, who these Panas with their yard. Now there is a beautiful verse in Kurinji part, where it is not the person, it is not a human being which is singing a pun. Just listen to this verse. Naivalam paduniya palai vallum, kai kavar narambin immana imirum, madar vandodu surumbu nayandu irutha, taadu avul alari taasinai pilandu. So what happens is, the heroine and a friend, this is a romantic poem. This Kurinji party itself, Kurinji is actually union. So union of lovers. So what happens here is that the heroine and a friend are surrounded by dogs. Who is afraid of dogs? Who is scared of dogs? I have many people known to me who are afraid of dogs, including yours truly. Now, the hero controls the dogs. You know how? He takes a stick and controls the dog, just like many of us do. But is that all? What he does is breaks a branch from a plant and uses it as stick. And how is this described? The male bee sings Nattapadai Pan and mates with the female sitting on the floor. You can call it as B, you can call it as B2 because Vandu is very unique to Tamil Nadu. So it's a B2 which sings Nattapadai Pan. Nattapadai is the present day Nattai. So bees or beetles singing ragam, and it mates with a female, and it is sitting on that flower. And this person breaks that. Probably he was a sadist. That's fine, but maybe he's upset. He wants to impress that girl, so he breaks that. But again, look at the background. That is that bee singing pun. How many people can think this way? So that is why I said music was an integral part of Tamil's life. So now what happens? Now this bee is singing. There is one more bee which is mentioned in Sirupanatru Padai in Marudam land. What happens is the male bee sings Sikamaram Pan while mating with the female. Sikamaram Pan is the present day Suddha Danyasi. What happens if a bee sings Suddha Danyasi? And when? Say idai podinda sempurkottai Ema in tunai tadi iragu ulardu Kamar tumbi kamaram seppum. The kamaram is that sea kamaram, which is the present day Suddha Danyasi. Now it is describing that Marudam land. He's saying that the red-hued beetle is singing this pun, sea kamaram pun, and mates with a female beetle. And there have also been people, now I have seen many people, though I love all the ragas, there is no discrimination, though some ragas are special, there are also people who don't like certain ragas, right? It's a fact. Now, what happens is here, cow herds, there's people who are, who are managing cows, and in North India, they're part of the Yadav clan, and here they were called as Ayargal. They relax in the night. And what they do is they break the kolli katte. Kolli katte is a burning stick. They break it and they make holes and they play flute. And what do they play? They play Palai Pan. Palai Pan is Hari Kambodi, which you heard 20-25 minutes back from Viraj. Palai Pan. That was Palai Pan. It's mentioned as Palai Pan. So they play this Palai Pan, and also Palai was mentioned in that yard also. That is, even the bandits and thieves drop their loot, listening to the Palai melody from the yard. So what happens? Somehow the crowd doesn't like it; they hate it. So people take yard. These Ayargad, right? They take yard and they play Kurinji Pan, and it doesn't stop with that. The beetles which are roaming around suddenly stop and they feel this is something close to us. This is sounding like our language. And they fall silent and it seems they are observing these people. So which means that even the living beings in this land were musically oriented. Now look at the imagination. Sendi totta karundulai kudalin, intin palai munayin, kumirin, pudakottu todutta maral muri narambin, will yard isaikum viral eri kurinji. Palkal paravai, palkal, one which has lot of legs, palakalgal. Palkal paravai, kilai settu orkum. Just stare. They are mesmerized. So we saw bees, we saw yard, we saw percussion instruments, and I'm going to finish this segment with a beautiful verse from a work called Kurundogai. Kurundogai, as the name says, is short. So there are about 400 Kurundogais. Here, this is actually, it pertains to Mullai land, and Mullai land is waiting, lovers wait. Now the hero, it was not uncommon for heroes to go on a business trip those days, and they will leave the heroine, not married, but let us assume that they were lovers, okay, just to create some romance here. So they were unmarried, but the hero rushes. And those days, there was somebody called, now the heroine had a friend always, a Sakhi, as you perform in a dance. Here, always a heroine had a friend, and this hero, either he had a friend, male friend, or a pagan. Pagan, literally translated, is the charioteer, right? And they were traveling on that. You can call driver. So he says, hey driver, Mr. Driver, go fast. You know why? I'll tell you the reason. I'm in a hurry to meet my lover. You know what happens? With the thunder sounding like the Padumalai Pant. Padumalai Pant, I'm coming to that in just 2 minutes. Pant. It's a raga, present day raga. It's existing now in Carnatic music. So the thunder sounds like Padumalai Pant, and it rained. And the fragrance from Mullai buds spread all around. And that fragrance is what I found in my talaivis, in my heroine's, on my heroine's forehead when I was in a tight, when we were in a tight embrace. So I want to see her immediately. Those were the beautiful days. It goes on a nostalgic trip. But again, why should somebody bring music here? Why should somebody bring raga here? Thunder sounding like raga dash dash. You will get to know what the raga is now. Right. This completes the first segment, which is the Sangam literature. And as I said, I would have taken 18 hours to describe this. I've just chosen few.